As you know, we almost always talk about politics on this program, and sometimes we throw caution to the wind and discuss religion too. Tonight, let's get very brave and look at an ugly mix, a worrying crossover between politics and religion. Let me explain. One of the big stories to come out of the census this week, we discussed it earlier in the week, was the decline in religion. This headline in The Australian talks about Christianity in decline and faith falling out of favour. The graphic shows how Christianity has fallen in census surveys over 50 years, from just over 80% to just above 40%. Now, when you include other faiths, of course, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu and others, there are still more than half of Australians who say they belong to a faith. But the trend is clear. This graph, based on the census data, shows how Christianity is falling, according to the census data, while those ticking no religion has climbed to almost the same level. Now, this has triggered a lot of gloating from those who are opposed to religion and a lot of hand-wringing from those who want to defend and preserve religion in our society. But what hasn't had so much attention is that this dramatic shift in the data is actually the product of a political campaign. Now, no one would deny the overall trend with religion, especially Christianity, trending down and no religion trending up. But especially with the religion question in the census being the only non-compulsory question, the dramatic change in numbers we've seen between the last two census collection points, this time around, the big drop in these numbers, big change in these numbers, it must have been influenced by this campaign.
Hey, if you pray, if you go to church, knock yourself out. I'm not going to stop you. But if, like me, you don't, be honest with yourself and be honest with the country and mark no religion on the census.
Yeah, many of you will remember it now. This no religion campaign was big on social media and organised by the Humanist Societies of Australia, official atheist groups and the Rationalist Society too. It was professional and pretty hard to miss, especially given we were all in lockdown, spending plenty of time online.
I don't pray.
I don't worship.
I no longer believe.
I don't go to a church or temple.
I don't go to the mosque or the synagogue.
So we will be non-religion census.
There you go. Remember all that during the census period last year? And especially on social media, they got some famous Australians to back them in.
So if you're not particularly religious yourself, tick no religion on the census and encourage your friends to do the same so that we don't end up in a situation where our currently very religious government gets to use the census to justify the religious privilege in their policy and funding decisions.
Yeah, a bit of anti-Scott Morrison stuff in there too, hey? There you go. I don't deny their right to argue their case. And of course, it's the right of every individual to answer the census questions how they choose. But we've got to remember this campaign has helped to shift the data. Now, some will say this will have made the data more accurate. Others could argue the data has now shifted with a fashionable campaign that might not last. But either way, what we can say is that those who now identify with a religion in the census are more likely to really mean it, to really be involved in their faith. So there's one aspect of this that I reckon is quite concerning, and that's the underlying motivation. The people pushing this campaign are out to undercut religious organisations. As this Sydney Morning Herald headline declares, they now argue that based on the census results, religions should stop getting what they call special treatment. The author, Heidi Nichols, is the CEO of Humanists Australia, and she wrote that the Census No Religion campaign encouraged people to give accurate information. But then she argues that reducing the privileges granted to religious bodies as their influence declines promotes fairness and offers truly equal opportunity for all to practice their beliefs or lack thereof. Aha, there you have it. That's the real agenda. That's why they ran the Census No Religion campaign. They want to undercut religion and religious organisations, and they argue that This will deliver fairness. Now, this is not only intolerant, but it's wrong-headed and self-defeating. Imagine the education system in Australia, for instance, especially for working families, without the Catholic education system. Nearly 1 in 5 students in Australia go to Catholic schools, mostly low-fee operations, obviously some prestigious colleges too. Add in the Anglican and other faiths and you have more than a third, and rising, of students going to non-government schools in this country. Australia just couldn't function without these schools. It's a similar story, of course, when it comes to hospitals and aged care homes. And, of course, it's especially important when it comes to charities. Where would the poor, the homeless, the disadvantaged be in this country without the work of Anglicare or St Vincent's de Paul? And then there's the endless pastoral care, often unseen, that church, temple, synagogue and mosque communities provide daily right around the country. Now, you don't have to be religious and you don't have to be actively involved, certainly, to know that religions do a power of good in our country, infinitely more than those that seek to tear them down. In fact, that's one of the great worries of our increasingly secular society. It begs the question about who will fill this role, who will support, who will organise for the good of community. Are we going to leave that to the people from blockade or Extinction Rebellion? I think not. So be aware of the trend, sure, but be aware there are people actively campaigning to push that trend in the data and then attack religion on the back of it.